This is Douglas Kirk. I wrote the Look for Me, I Will Find You book series because of an idea that was presented to me on October 24th, 2008. I'm a newspaper publisher and I was working with a friend of mine who models for the paper. We were taking pictures for a creep tale in a local cemetery, something that was going to be published for Halloween. And after we had worked, we sat down just to rest, before packing up the camera gear and ready to head back home. We started discussing some of the things that we're looking at around us, which is all these grave markers. And she brought up the idea that perhaps the grave markers were just a sign of a person's life and not necessarily the end of his life. Now, a lot of us believe in an afterlife. There's plenty of a religious doctrine to suggest that there is an afterlife. But I hadn't much considered the concept of a before life until we had that discussion in the cemetery. And the question was posed, do you think these people are really dead? Or do you think maybe they've gone on? And as a result of that idea, which jingled around in my head for about 2 years, I came up with the idea of representing that particular concept with a couple who starred in the year 1014 in Ireland. And what this is, it's a young couple, they're in love, and the young lady has a dream that her boy is going to die in a battle that they're fixing to have the next day. It's actually the Battle of Clontarf, where the Irish were going to try to kick the Vikings off the island once and for all. Vikings had ruled for 200 years, and she had the dream that her guy was going to die. Well, she tells him, and as a result of that conversation the night before the battle, he says, if anything happens to me, look for me, I will find you. Now that becomes the premise of the entire four-book series, the idea that perhaps we do go on, perhaps there is another life, and if we're looking for the same person in the future life, maybe we can find him. So I took that concept, and in the very first book, it's kind of the setup where I show that these two people come together in the year 2008, and as a result of some circumstances that they're dealing with, they realize that they might have known each other before. And as a result of that, we kind of time trip back into 1850, where there's a young Irish lad who is trying to leave Ireland to go to America, who wants to immigrate, and he wants to take his girlfriend with him. So we follow him and her and what happens in that case. And then we follow him as he becomes a railroad worker in the United States and later a coal miner in Pennsylvania. And then we bounce to another couple in the 50s in Hollywood. He's a photographer, and he's anxious to make his mark, and he has a particular woman that he wants to photograph, and he tracks her down and photographs her. She's a pretty famous actress, but her career is kind of stalled, and so he has the idea if he does a nice photo story, an article about her for one of the national magazines, maybe he can get her career back on track and give his career a big boost. We follow that. As that particular book concludes, the couple from 2008, they begin to realize that they're connected to all these other people. That gives rise to the second book, which is I Will Find You. They learn quite by accident that through hypnosis, they can actually go back, or at least the lady can actually go back in time and visit with some of the past couples. And not only that, but she can make some changes in their lives. She can appear to them as a guardian angel and influence the things that go on with them. Of course, she has to fight a problem herself. They're involved in a car accident where both of them nearly die. And as a result of that, they meet another gentleman who helps them out in this particular book and then returns in the fourth book to play an even bigger role. And we meet some new characters. There's scenario where there's some folks in 1898 in New York City, a young man who is a headline writer for one of the big giant yellow journalism newspapers. This is in the big heat of the Spanish-American War. We follow him and what happens to him and his good friend and his mother. His mother, who actually appeared in the first book, shows up in the second book. We also meet another young couple struggling against the Great Dust Bowl of 1932 and the hardships of dealing with farms being going bankrupt and banks foreclosing on them and all that sort of stuff. And then we meet another couple who are actually a futuristic couple. They're from the year 2039. We learn that they also have the power to go back into the past, and so they come back into some of these other lives to try to help them out and change destiny. Uh, the couple that discovered all this in 2008 then discover that there's some people from the future coming back to help them, just as they've gone back in their past to help those individuals. The third book is called Missing You, and we focus again on the main characters who are the 2008 couple. And there are some circumstances that are pretty scary where the young lady is put into a dire situation where there's some real fear that she's not going to make it, that something really, really serious is happening to her. And the guy who plays the role across from her, he just goes out of his head trying to protect her and save her from these things that are happening. We also find that they have the power to help these other couples. So some of the things that happened in books 1 and book 2 are now changed, and there's a completely different outcome. That's one of the things that makes this a fascinating read, because everything is constantly in flux. What you thought was true is not true. What you thought was set in stone is changeable. So we follow some of the characters that we met in the first book in completely different circumstances, and we learn more and more about the powers that these people have, the ones, the couple in 2008 and the couple in 2039. That gives rise then to the fourth book. Its title is Everything to Me, and it gets a little more twisted because even though they're working diligently to change and better the lives prior to themselves, come to find out it's not perfect, and sometimes they make mistakes that make things worse, which are harmful not only to the previous couples but to themselves. And the characters kind of get stuck in time, and they are really in a dire situation and try to get out. And the only thing that gets them out is a true understanding of what it is that they've been doing. And the one thing that transcends all time is this lover's pact that was formed with the original characters, that kept them going for 1,000 years. And it's through the love that they're able to survive some of the bad things that are thrown at them. Each of the books is an independent read, which means if you read only the first book, you have a complete story and you have a good outcome. As some of my reviewers have said, they love a happy ending. The second book needs to be read after the first, but if you only read 1 and 2, you'd still have a complete story, and that's true of 1, 2, and 3, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4. But what I have found is that the readers who read one book absolutely want the second, and once they've read the second, they want the third, and once they've read the third, they want the fourth. And those that have now read all 4 books are saying, when's book 5 coming out? And I keep saying, what do you mean book 5? I quit after the first book. I thought it was done when I wrote the first book. And then the second book sneaked up on me. I wrote it, and I thought, okay, I'm done. Same thing with the third and the fourth. I feel like each time they're finished, they're complete. Everything's tied together. It's a total story. But the characters keep coming back to me and keep saying, hey, there's more. There's more. You can talk about this and this and this. And I feel like in writing these books that I'm a passenger. I'm just a reporter. I'm just a guy writing down these things that are occurring to me. And that's where it gets all very strange. One of the lines that I put in the front of every book is it memory or imagination? Now, I think I'm imagining this. I think I'm making this up. I think this is all fiction. But then when I come back and read the books, I say, where did I come up with that? And why in book one did I say that? And then later on, book three or book four, it comes to fruition. Or I'll say something in one of the later books that ties back to the earlier books. I say, how did I do that? It's almost as though the stories were written for me. And as one of my readers said, he said, "You're just channeling this stuff. This is actually coming from another source." And I don't know if I believe in that, but I'm certainly not going to deny it because I don't know. I don't know if it's memory or imagination. I think it's fiction. I feel like it's fiction, but some of the things in here that have been said, I'll give an example. I wrote in one of the books that a certain event was going to take place on a certain day with a full moon. I just wrote that down when I was working, and I didn't even question it. And then after I finished the book, just doing some fact checking, I thought, well, I'll just check to see if that's true. Come to find out that there is a full moon on that particular day. Now you would think, okay, that's 1 out of 30 chance because you have full moons every month, right? Well, not exactly right. Come to find out, when you look at the almanac, you find out that there's a full moon on that particular day once every about 20 years. So the probability of me getting that right, just it's astronomical that I could just guess that. So where did that come from? How did I know that? And I didn't check it before I wrote it. I just wrote it and I checked it later. Well, because of that experience, I went back to the first book and I had put in there that there was a half moon on a certain day with a photographer who was down on the beach with this actress that he was trying to photograph. And I thought, well, yeah, you just kind of make that stuff up. And I thought, well, let me go back and check. So I went back to the almanac for the year 1956 and checked it. And lo and behold, on that day, there was a half moon. Now, how does a person do that? And these are just a few of the facts that I don't think I should know that I'm putting in the books. And then when I go back to verify, they're right. Where does that come from? I mean, is it just coincidence? Is it just happenstance? Or as they say, things happen for a reason. So I don't know. I mean, it's an incredibly interesting experience for me. And now I'm a psychologist and a photographer, and the main character in the story is a psychologist, and photography is used by some of the other characters. I mean, that's not all that unusual to do something like that. I mean, they say write what you know. It's interesting to me how I'm sitting here as an observer, and all of this is coming out, like the dialogue is coming out. Just literally, there were times when I was writing that I would close my eyes and type because it was occurring to me as fast as my fingers could type it into the computer. That's a strange way to write. The very first book took me 20 hours to write. The other books came pretty quickly as well. Total writing time, not much more than that. And when you read the books and you see how intricate the plot is, how everything ties together, it's like, gee whiz, I've never been that good of a writer. I've written novels before that they're nowhere this intricate and clean. I just don't understand it. So anyway, I hope that everyone's enjoying the books. That seems to be the case so far. I'm getting a lot of good feedback, and I really appreciate everyone supporting the project. Our goal, of course, is to create a series of motion pictures. I kind of write visually when I sit down and write. I picture things. I see the images in my head, and I'm just kind of describing those images. So in terms of a motion picture, I've already seen the movie, and it's a great movie. Actually, a series. Each book would be a separate movie, I think. It'd be pretty hard to condense 4 books into one movie. I mean, it would be a long movie. It would be a mini series. Or you could just make 4 movies out of it. So I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll talk to you soon.